Starfield is finally here, which means that Fallout 5 is now second in line behind the Elder Scrolls to get a new game from Bethesda. No, I am not joking, this game is probably going to come out in 2030 or some insane number like that, compared to the last entry, that being Fallout 4 in 2015. And because of the large gap of time, we are able to speculate more than ever, I think, about Fallout 5 and what it's actually going to look like, because I bet you Bethesda knows just as much as me, which is literally nothing. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about some early assumptions about the game, knowing Bethesda's past, and seeing what we can take away. And then lastly, briefly telling you what I think Fallout 5 could potentially look like in maybe like 7 years. This is ridiculous, man. Every Fallout game has a very good track record of closing doors, whether that be big quest lines or entire factions. Each sequel does a good job at not giving you much info on what the true canon ending of the previous title was. This means that really each game has a blank slate going in, and I think they will use this to their advantage with the larger time gap of the real world to make a soft reboot Fallout, or at least reintroduce everything popular about the franchise to the player. Mainly just because it's been a really long time. Even though this game, I believe, is going to be called Fallout 5, it's going to be 10 plus years away from the previous title. There's a difference, so you're going to have fans who don't know what's going on. That means we're going to get a lot of old ideas, like super mutants, back in this game, which will make the lore heads go crazy, I am sure of it. Let's talk probably some certainties. Stuff we can probably just lock in since we know Bethesda by now. They seem to have a complete desire to leave the West Coast and the original games with New Vegas alone. If they didn't, they would change one piece of lore and every single New Vegas fanboy would get really upset, so I don't really blame them. I kinda understand their viewpoint there. So that probably means East Coast, and a lot of people have thought New York since there was a few teases to it in Fallout 4, and since they like the big city ideas, I don't think that's a bad bet to put your money on. For factions, we are going to probably get a localized militia, the good-hearted people in some capacity, examples being followers of the Apocalypse, the Minutemen, and the Responders. Alongside that, we're going to get some kind of evil faction that is purely evil, but will still have an option for you to join them for the sake of an evil playthrough, a la the Institute and the Fallout 3 Enclave ending, which wasn't even really an Enclave ending, but I digress. And lastly, we will have the Brotherhood of Steel in some main role. Bethesda loves the Brotherhood because everybody loves the Brotherhood and money talks. I believe they will move away from the voice protagonist role into something they've been experimenting with the Fallout 76 DLC, making it more akin to New Vegas and Fallout 3, while adding a new style of checks as well. The perk tree is hit or miss depending on what they're going to actually do. If they're smart, they would go back to the old ones, but we know they're not smart. For time period, I'm going to go with 5 years after Fallout 4. Every single game moves the series ahead so much, to its own detriment in my opinion. But I think 5 will incorporate a lot more characters we've seen previously. And they need to be alive and not too old to do anything. And since there were no real kid characters in Fallout 4 like McCready in Fallout 3 to age up, they'll keep it pretty close together. And as for a main protagonist, I think it's pretty obvious we're going to get some kind of Vault Dweller, as it's a mainline title and most likely they will follow the formula. But I bet you can bet on some kind of twist with the Vault gimmick like Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. Bethesda's a broken record, so it's kinda easy to guess. And lastly, as a fun one for me, I think we will still not know the answer for who actually started the war, because at this point, I don't think Bethesda knows either. So those are my assumptions on the game, and probably the easiest things to guess on, knowing their history and Todd Howard. But what can we take away from these ideas? My version of Fallout 5 would take place on the East Coast, just more inland than you would imagine. I'm actually thinking Wisconsin because it's the most generic city I can think of in the Midwest. Now, Bethesda has a tendency to subvert your expectations. I feel like the biggest example of this is Sean being a very old man, and I'm going to play on this tendency for the actual faction of the game as opposed to a single character. Through the beginning of the main story and working with the classic Minutemen or Responders group, we are asked to help the main power of the region in destroying our generic evil bad guys. Or at least attacking their base or a convoy or anything like that. And it's during this mission we discover that the good guys of the game and the people who have been helping out the community are the remnants of the Fallout 3 Enclave. And the people we've been sent to destroy is the Brotherhood of Steel. In a misguided attempt to wipe out all traces of the Enclave, they've accidentally started a war with the entire region and are looked at like how the Commonwealth views the Institute. I think this can open up a lot of moral gray within the Fallout universe. Bethesda has always done the one generic evil bad guy group that we clearly should destroy for the main quest, but what happens when one of those evil groups turns a new leaf? Will the player fall back into their stereotypical ways when it comes to these factions, or will they forgive a group that try to exterminate everybody in the Capital Wasteland? I think that's a very important question to ask, and I think it'll bring back the who is best for the Wasteland conversation we had in New Vegas. All the while keeping everything laid out in the classic Fallout factions. Now everything I just said sounds really good in my head, and that's what I want Fallout 5 to be. The sad reality is that it probably won't be. We'll have another East Coast Fallout game years apart from its sequel focusing on the Brotherhood of Steel. This is their track record, and to be honest with you, I would still love and play that game to death because I want a new Fallout experience more than anything at this point. But what is your ideal Fallout 5? What would you want in it, and where would it even take place? I know one of the popular places are, New York, Chicago, New Orleans, but is there some place interesting that you would like? Please let me know down below, because at least talking about Fallout is better than waiting for Fallout 5 to come out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy what I do, maybe consider checking out some of my other stuff. Thank you so much.